I'm Fran Berman from the U.S.
And my esteemed colleagues here are Juan Bicarregui from the UK and Leif Laaksonen, Chief Guru Plenary Planner. And this is the newcomer session, so I think the purpose of this is to feel free to ask anything you like about RDA and RDA going forward. One thing, let me just give you the caveat is we are really delighted to be here after all this planning, but it is a work in progress. And I think your participation and this community's participation in helping make it an effective organization, an impactful organization, as we go forward and get experience with various parts of it, is going to be really critical for it to be an organization that's worth all of our time. So, so we are open for business.
This is, I don't know if this is on. Is it? Yeah, now it's on, yeah. This is really the Woody Allen session, what you always have wanted to know about RDA but never dared to ask, so please shoot.
This is a nice friendly environment to ask the question where the spotlights are on us and you're all in the dark.
First question, is there a height requirement? No, there is not. So
you talked about there were publishers in the audience and there was some talk of industry as well. Are you happy that RDA has the broad coverage and the right people here? You know, do we have archives, industry, publishers? I can see we have the researchers and the funders.
We can all answer.
yeah, I think we can all answer that. I think that you know, the data community is a fairly amorphous term. And what we're trying to accomplish with the RDA is we really want to promote and, you know, get close to or help get close to our potential as using data, you know, without barriers, with the right kinds of infrastructures in order to push new results, data-driven results. In that sense, there's a number of people who have roles to play. You know, there's technologists, there's people in the research community, there's people who manage infrastructure, there's people who publish, you know, articles and data. There's all kinds of people. So in my mind, this should be an open community organization for anybody who's really interested in the effective use of data to push innovation forward.
Yes, I think that's right. And you said a few things that are probably underrepresented for now. But some of the private sector involvement, I imagine, will come once the momentum is built up. But we're open for everybody, but yes. The balance at the moment is not balanced, right? There's more publicly funded people here than there are privately funded people.
But, you know, we are the RDA, I mean, all of us.
Yeah.
And so there's some work for us to do. There might be, I think that I would love to see, and I'm going to work hard, and I think all of us should work hard in our own, for our own sets of priorities. I would love to see sort of more people involved in the RDA representing a number of things, representing the, you know, research users, representing the libraries, representing the private sector. So, so that, you know, I'll be working in that space to try to, you know, make sure that they know about the RDA and if RDA is a useful vehicle for them to use the RDA. But I think we all should be doing that in our own venues.
That was pretty unfair. You took my comment.
Oh,
How did you know, I would say? I mean, I don't know really about which is share of different kind of persons with a different background should be here, but I think we all have a message now, and I think that's what Fran was indicating to that. When we go back from here, we have all the task to spread the message and get more people involved, and I think this is really the essence here. And if I think about those people whom we have here today are, I think, the right first wave of persons to take the message back, spread the news and get more people involved. And in that sense, I think we have the sort of a right audience or the right type of people here, and that's really important, I think.
Okay, this is Stefan Winkler-Nils from the German Research Foundation. I'm not really a newbie to RDA, but I deliberately wanted to visit this session because I'm struggling with this point, how to attract the communities to cooperate in RDA. And when I'm going back tonight, actually, I still have not a good answer how to talk to the communities instead of course, publishing a press release or something like this and talk to individuals. But I would expect that 80–90% would say, I don't have time. What shall I do? You know, what can I do? And in the end, I guess you will receive or you will address those people who are active in this field anyway. And I don't have a good idea actually, and I was also hoping to have to get through the questions some ideas from the attendance of this meeting of this group here. But are you planning any sort of how can you say advertising, promoting activities in RDA for the communities, to the postdocs, to the researchers in the labs, to the individuals? As I said earlier in another meeting, it's probably 80–90% of the communities who have not a single clue what we are doing here, and these are the people.
Can I start? I can give you still a few minutes. What you are mentioning is, of course, it's very true and it's critical. And I think we have all been discussing quite a lot about the legwork which has to be done by RDA as well. We haven't done the legwork that much so far, but I think this conference in a way will be now the starting point for extensive legwork, if I may use, I don't know, Juan, do you want to start walking with me around? And also we have to do a lot of more dissemination and outreach activity through the organizations, to the communities. But I don't have a sort of say a clear answer which you would be able to put in your pocket and give to your people. But I think what you can use in a way is that I know, and we all know, that there are lots of people having a sort of a dream in their mind what they would like to do. And I think RDA can offer possibilities now for fulfilling the, sort of a dreams in the data interoperability sense. And that is perhaps one of the sort of the messages. And apart from that, we now from the RDA side had to do a lot of more dissemination, outreach and legwork as well to talk to people. This has been really marvelous to meet so many persons and seeing different views, because it's impossible among ourselves just to really imagine all the type of questions you get here. So I think we are all learning, as I think Fran said.
And I think if we go back to the bridge metaphor, it's the bridge that was shown by the lady, I've forgotten her name now, about the Atlantic Highway, which is a lot of little steps joining up and making a bridge entirely. So the people that have to make those bridges are the 250 people who've attended the conference here. They have to go back to their day jobs and say, look, I was involved in this, and it's something that is relevant, and that we should get this community, whichever one they're working in, involved.
Yeah, let me add something to that. Some of us had much longer legs before we started this, so, you know, I expect to be about 2 feet high at the end of it. Right now, up till today, which we're now 1.5 days old, so we're getting there. There's been 8 people and a number of others doing the legwork, and I know these guys have been doing it too. I've been going around to different meetings and giving sessions on RDA and just letting people know kind of what was happening. And now we have 250 people who can do that kind of thing as they can. But I wanted to say 3 other points with you. Number one, I think we really need to have a more structured outreach approach. And one of the things we want to do over time as the Secretariat and other kinds of things evolve is have a really strategic plan, because there's communication both within our community, so people know about RDA and can choose to do something within the RDA framework if that's a good vehicle for them. And then there's communication outside our community to stakeholders and others who need to know about the data community and perhaps some of the, great adopted activities that RDA has done. So we need a more mature communication strategy, and there's like plans to get there, and any help we can get, we can. The second thing I wanted to say is that I believe that people will choose to do things within RDA at the point when individual effort is not enough. There are things at which you kind of need to get a community together to kind of go to the next step. And typically those are the kinds of things that we choose to interact with various professional organizations for. And so what I would imagine is that as people have a set of practices that they would like to see more broadly adopted, or an approach that allows them to interact with another community or something like that, something where you need more of a community to be involved in that, and that's not a community of everyone, but a community of some, then I think people might choose the RDA to be a vehicle, and there are many vehicles out there, and they're all useful. The third thing I wanted to say is I really resonate with what you said about a generational piece. So one thing I'm missing is the postdocs and the students who might be very interested, or the young faculty or the young whatever, who might be really interested in getting involved in these kinds of community organizations. And as an old guy, these are the leaders of the next generation, and it's really important for them to be involved in community activities. So I think that part of the communication and outreach plan should be ways to involve in fruitful ways for their careers, students and postdocs and whatever. And I, for one, would be very interested in hearing people's ideas about how to do that in a way that's useful use of their time, but is also gives them the value of interacting with a broader community. I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah.
Just going to get a pen so that we can take some notes.
I'm very brief. Just a suggestion probably for the next plenary meeting, because here we are more or less, I guess, sitting in the middle of a university, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Probably for the next time, prepare an evening for the researchers on the place, on the spot.
That's a great
because that would at least be some tiny little aspect to advertise what we are doing here. Invite all the researchers from that particular university for a public event or a talk or whatever. The success stories are always very helpful to convince people, and then they are pretty much at least aware what this group of people is doing here, which is meeting for 2 or 3 days.
In research and I'm just representing the marine domain, marine data domain. And like I said, in every working group that you're now establishing in, we probably have some activities that are relevant to that. And I think it's important that you connect to those, because otherwise you may get a repel response. Like, yeah, right, another working group on data publishing, that's all we need. And I also fully agree with this, with what you said, we need a strategy. Well, there are existing structures. For the marine community, there is the International Oceanographic Data and Information Exchange Network. Above that, there is the WDS. And I think you can work through them because we have a number of working groups and projects ourselves on data publishing, on metadata, on this and that. And so if you tell us, okay, we invite you to identify somebody for these working groups on this and this and this and this, then we can reutilize those people, and we can also reutilize the expertise that's already there, rather than setting up new activities to do what is already being done by others. Now, in terms of another one, communication with the wider community. Well, last Friday I found out there was going to be live streaming, but that was last Friday. If I had known weeks before, we could have mobilized people and announced to them these sessions will be live streamed. Then we would have been able to reach a large community. Now I hear they're being recorded, so we can still sort of do that. But maybe for next time, advertise that a bit earlier. Yeah. But so in summary, please use the existing domain-specific networks that are in existence.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly well worth doing. There's no question. The question is, how's the best way to do that? Because just like there is marine, there are 20, 30 other disciplines.
No, but like I said...
how do we engage as a cross-disciplinary group with the
first thing
individual
is,
disciplines? What's the mechanism?
Well, if we take the example of data publishing, for example, if you contact me and you say, we have this working group on data publishing,
Yes.
Can you identify a few experts who could contribute, who are knowledgeable and experts in that domain? Well, you may have to do that 30 times then, according to the domains. But then I think you will have a working group that has the expertise necessary. And already I hear from other people here, they are doing something similar. I sent them a copy of our cookbook. So things are starting to...
So this is the diagram that we had yesterday with the big and the small groups, right? We need to identify what the small circles are that we interact through.
Yeah,
because RDA is one of these big groups and the marine groups are another one of
But
those.
I was saying not just have people subscribing here to working groups, but reach out further.
But the reach out is through individuals like yourself. So it's your job to go back and say to the marine community, to say, look, they've got the working group on data publication.
But you have to set up the mechanism. You have to ask me, can you identify somebody? And then I can do that.
Yeah, let me share a conversation that Ross and I had with the WDS folks over lunch, which was really a substantive and delightful conversation. And we were talking about exactly those issues. And so it's an interesting tension because on the one hand, I think the RDA is not there to kind of create the overall architecture that everyone will subscribe to in any particular thing. That's that's sort of the whole unifying thing that, the world just seems to be, infrastructure seems to happen in more than one, overarching architecture. On the same task, I think your point is that you don't want everyone sort of inventing stuff without any kind of coordination with other kinds of groups or with other kinds of efforts, because that makes no sense at all. And so where might we profitably play in the middle? And this is a discussion I think this whole community needs to have. And one of the things we were talking about at lunch is this bespeaks to something we unfortunately don't have right now, but we'll have in a few months, and Juan's heading up this effort, which is the Technical Advisory Board. And the Technical Advisory Board, we are hopeful, will be a very proactive set of technical experts, which helps with a lot of this matchmaking and helps with a lot of the understanding of, which groups are doing what's happening in other organization, helps kind of create those collaborations. I think we can't get away from what I think of as the electronic medical record problem, which is in the US, it's now mandated that we will have electronic medical records. There's various vendors for those. We're not adopting the same company as electronic medical records for everyone. However, everybody must embed useful information, and in fact, the medical community will have to worry about interoperability. If you're in one clinic and they use one kind, and then you need to go to another clinic, you have to be able to interoperate. In some sense, a lot of our infrastructure will probably have that kind of thing, where there's a big community that uses one kind of infrastructure. There's somebody else who uses something. You would actually want to combine it. The actual combining infrastructure itself may be, a third piece of the puzzle. And so that's a place where I think RDA could, in the ideal, play a very proactive and useful role, A, as a partner to other organizations who are looking at road mapping activities and things like that, B, to the community where things are happening in different places, and it may be that you can just adopt somebody else's thing, or C, in the case where there's, multiple kinds of things, to kind of create an interoperability framework so we can get something done, using the kind of infrastructure that they're. But I think that's a really important discussion, and it puts us all in kind of a gray area, but it's a real world gray area.
Yeah, because I think in RDA you will have the domains, but you also have sort of addressing these issues from a more research, academic, theoretical point of view, and that expertise is often missing in the domains.
Yes.
In the domain, sometimes we are sort of enlightened amateurs with certain things. And if RDA can help us bringing some of this more advanced knowledge into what we're doing, that will be an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
Because
And by-
often
by
we
the-
don't have access to
Can
that
I-
knowledge.
By the way, in my diagram, you are a flower. So I just want to say that I'm really happy to see you here. So.
Hopefully we aren't pruning. Okay, can I add a few things as well, because the sort of a full extent of RDA hasn't really been perhaps revealed or been expressed, but you have to see I mean, what you see of RDA now is the sort of a global global aspect of RDA. What we are also trying to create is RDA. We have the RDA US, and we will have RDA Europe as well. So there will be a structure in a way which is, I try to avoid the word hierarchical, but I mean, there will be a structure where you have your contact surface in different places, as you will have the RDA Global, you will have something which is RDA Europe as well. And this RDA Europe will have, of course, its contacts and its space also to the financing agencies in Europe. So there will be different kinds of different ways you can engage into the RDA structure. And I think this is also quite important, especially Fran can speak perhaps more from the RDA US side, but I can speak a bit from the RDA Europe side. And I think that provides already some exciting new possibilities to push forward the research data side.
I would say from the U.S. side, we're only, now RDA is a day and a half old, but the RDA US is only 6 months old. So we're working hard to try to figure out what is most useful to the U.S. community. For those of you from the U.S., we're at a pretty exciting time, but also a pretty challenging time. We're seeing from the U.S. Administration a real focus on data. There was a big data initiative. There was recently a public access memo from our Office of Science and Technology Policy. There's been the institution of data management plans through various agencies, most recently the NSF. And the U.S. data community, with a little bit of organization, we feel that we can help comment and inform a lot of this data activity going on in a way that's really useful for the community. And what we're trying to figure out is what are useful venues for that? And so we've been having a lot of discussions about what's useful for our stakeholders, what's useful for the people involved, because every single person here, including the three of us, have day jobs. And it's very important for your day job that you're kind of working fruitfully. So what can we do to kind of use the time well, but be strategic in terms of the way we come together and the kinds of things we do? I think that's true of RDA internationally as well. And so in the US, we're still figuring that out. It's definitely a work in progress. I think Leif and the ICORDI, now RDA EU folks, are a little bit ahead of us in sort of that organizational activity. And so we look for inspiration to RDA Europe in that.
We will shine.
Yeah.
Kathleen Cass from CODATA. In 4 weeks' time, there's going to be a meeting of the CODATA Executive Board in Paris, and I will be putting on the agenda the activities that are currently being discussed by RDA. And what I'm trying to do is anticipate the sort of questions my board will ask me, and I want to ask you, so I will be able to answer them. Now, I think one of the issues that they will raise, and I don't particularly want to focus on it too much here because you've raised it and it was discussed very well with the last speaker, is how the activities proposed by RDA will complement, build on, feed into activities that directly or indirectly other organizations are doing. And I think this is going to be a growing process. And the very fact that you have this BOF sessions this afternoon, I think it's an excellent example of, reaching out to other groups, seeing what they're doing, and where can we go from there. So let's park that for the moment. Then they will probably ask, what mechanisms have RDA or are in existence at the moment that organizations can work through. Based on the discussions over the last 2 days, my understanding is the working group mechanism is one of the strong mechanisms in which organizations can perhaps work with RDA on new ideas if they have concrete deliverables, etc., coming out of them. The other mechanism I'm hearing, and this is what I require clarification from you guys from, is the interest groups. What I would be interested to know is what is the difference between the interest group structure, the working group structure? How does one feed into the other? Does a specific interest group have to exist before it develops into a working group? I just want clarification on that particular point. The other issue, and I apologize because I understand that this will probably be discussed tomorrow, but I won't be here. But I was reading the RDA governance doc, and one of the partnership or member structures you're proposing is organizational member participation, and also the organizational advisory board. And I'm curious to know what is the status of organizational membership. Is there a process in place? First question. Secondly, how does this organizational membership participation feed into the board? And thirdly, again, just reading the document, and I'm sure I've missed something, I understand there will be perhaps an ex officio member from the organizational advisory board who will sit on the council. So I'm curious to know the status of that. I don't want definite answers, or I just want to know what the current status.
So go on.
And my final question.
Oh gosh.
The final question is easy.
They're all great questions, by the way.
Are there any other issues that I should raise with my board as to how perhaps we can engage more with these respective networks? Because this is exciting work that has been discussed over the 2 days, and it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. And let's try and engage the various interested, relevant stakeholders. And this is what I'm trying to do. So, if there's something else that I can raise, be it immediate term or long term, that they could begin to consider, please tell me. That's it, nothing else.
Those are great questions.
Shall I have a go first?
Yeah, you want to start?
They're all absolutely critical questions, and they're all things we've been thinking about. And on the whole, they're things we don't have definite answers to. We're in the formation stage. For example, the idea of affiliation between different organisations, CoData and RDA, clearly have to work together. How do we affiliate? How do we do that working? We have a little bit of outline on that governance document, maybe. We really don't have a model ready. So we're open for discussion. We realise we need to set up a group inside RDA that is going to work that kind of thing out. Probably best to work it out on a one-by-one basis for the first 2 or 3 affiliations, so that we can then derive a general model, rather than trying to do a general model before we've ever done one affiliation. So it's going to be a case-by-case basis in the first instance. One way of working together is clearly working groups. If there's a topic which is a common interest, we'll set the same people working on it and have a group in this one and a group in that one, but effectively it's the same bit work being done by the same people. So that's a good way of doing it. But I think as well as collaborating through working groups, we also need to collaborate at a more formal level, sort of organisation to organisation. So we need a mechanism to do that. How that mechanism should work, we're open for suggestions.
You're hoping that a mechanism will be in place to facilitate.
I think we need one. We don't have one yet.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually add something to that, because Ross and I are sort of heading up a group to try to figure out 2 things. First of all, the Organizational Advisory Board and an affiliate partner organizations, and those are 2 different things, and I could go into those. I really appreciate the CoData issue, and Kathleen, you may not know this, but in the U.S., U.S. CODATA is under the stewardship of the National Academy's
right, Birdie.
Board on Research,
Yeah.
Data, and Information. I'm actually one of the co-chairs of
Yeah.
that, as is Cliff Lynch. And so Sarah Graves came,
Yeah.
and we were having exactly the same
Yeah.
conversation about RDA and CODATA,
Yeah.
and about what are the fruitful ways that we can work very closely together. And that's really a priority. It is for me anyway, and I think it's a priority for everybody. So some things that in process that would be useful to know about. Ross and I are charged in the next few months of coming up with not just a process, but sort of real instances of partnership affiliates. So let's just start with organizations. There are organizations like CODATA and WDS and other kinds of organizations for which there's enough of an overlap in terms of what our missions are, the communities that we serve, that it would be really fruitful for us to figure out what we can do together. And, okay, so here's things we can't do. None of us have like resources in terms of financial resources to exchange. We can't send each other money or stuff like that. What we can do is figure out things, and we want to do more than like each other on Facebook. Right?
I agree.
So what we want to do is sort of figure out, are there activities to co-sponsor? Are there things that sort of work? For example, one thing that the working group structure for RDA is it's about taking a roadmap and putting it into practice. But there are other organizations who are really looking at what is that roadmap. You have to start with the roadmap. You have to have a lot of people talk about what are the right kinds of things to try to put into place, and then there has to be a next step where you put those things into place and get some experience with them. That's a really fruitful way for RDA to collaborate with a number of organizations doing road mapping activities around infrastructure that are going to help elevate the community trying to use data in a way that they can do that without barriers, as we say. So those are kinds of really fruitful collaborations. Ross and I recognize that this is probably going to have to be a one-to-one thing, because each organization is different. They have different things they're interested in, different communities, different things to offer. In my own view, it's like if we can circle the wagons and sort of figure out how to say, this is a circle of wagons, take us as a group, with other kinds of organizations, we're benefiting, rather than shooting inward, we're benefiting the community. So the idea is to, with CODATA and with other organizations, figure out what are those specific things we can do together. And in fact, we had one of the submitted case statements this time was as really a joint RDA CODATA group of folks who will do, I think, the road mapping part under the auspices of CODATA and other kinds of activity, and then the adopting of deliverables as an RDA working group. So that answers part of the partner affiliate. There are also going to be an organizational advisory board. Now, what is the purpose of that? Well, like other organizations, at some point we need to be self-sustaining. And so what do we need money for? We'll have a secretariat who needs to run things. Kathleen knows about that really well. We'll have events that we need to plan. We want to have an outreach component where we have communications folks who help get your really good work out there. And so all of those things will require a budget. And what we want to do is sort of figure out how we get to that budget. Part of the solution of that is an organizational advisory board. Organizations that want to join RDA provide in-kind or financial support, help decide what kinds of strategies we might use to do various things. And we will be, as many organizations do, looking for a set of organizational partners to fill out that board. So that's the other way to interact in a way where you support the RDA infrastructure itself. And our infrastructure is the secretariat, the events, any kinds of communications, etc. Let's see, you had one more question that I wanted to
there was the question about the difference between the interest groups and the working groups. I think, before I answer that, I think what Fran was saying is that half a year ago, really nothing of this structure existed. So we don't really have the answers to all. The questions you are raising are relevant, and we need to to have an opinion on those, but I mean, there are 500,000 different things we are trying to answer all the time, so we don't have an answer to everything. There is also the thing which I think in a way hasn't been echoed enough, and we feel that when we are community driven, this is the first case when we are really together here. I mean, this is the first time all these people come together to discuss. So what the outcome from this conference really, or the plenum meeting will show quite a lot the direction where RDA will be heading to. So to answer your questions in a way is not possible before we have gone through this conference. The question about the interest and the working groups. There has been a lot of work going into defining these things. And I think from the results, in a way, we have 2 working groups now which has been approved by the Council. And it's mentioned in the document that they should be quite short-lived and is it significant? No, what was the word? Significant output in a way during a short term, which is in a way quite well defined. The interest groups is something I think in a way which we invented because there are things which really can't be answered in 12 months or 18 months that need to be sort of a more thought. It's not mature enough really to produce something significant in a shorter time space. What these interest groups, I mean, what is the output of these interest groups is still a bit unclear. I think the Council has been talking about some reports, but that's also...
Do you want me to say?
Yeah, I'll give you the word in a few minutes. But it sounds a bit strange, but quite a lot of these things have been discussed over the breakfast table. So I guess it shows a bit of the sort of how young the organization is. But we had a discussion about this, and Alan Blatecki, for example, he had been thinking about this a lot, and he said he didn't really have a clear idea, because there must be something more than some documents coming out from the interest groups, because if an interest group lives over a longer time span, there must be some steps in a way that builds up to something, and a report necessarily doesn't really fulfill that. But if Fran from the Council side has a more...
Well, I'll give you a differing opinion.
Good.
So this shows you what a young organization, now that we're a day and a half old. I think Ross agrees with this, but I'm not sure where John's at. I think, anyone can get together on the forum and talk about any appropriate topic. Obviously, there are inappropriate topics that you don't want on the forum, but can really talk about anything and, of interest to the data community. And I think the interest group is about that lively conversation. And then I think that there will be times when there are other kinds of activity. There's things when something needs to be done, a just do it kind of thing. And it may be that someone in an interest group, or who started an interest group, or maybe not even an interest group at all, wants to sort of write down what that is in a case statement, and then have that be a value proposition for a working group. And so many of those case statements will come out of one or more interest groups because of the kinds of conversation, the road mapping, the other kinds of things they might do in that venue. But the working group is really about sort of that 12 to 18 month concrete deliverable. Interest groups could be there forever, I think. I think they could. But maybe we'll make rules, I don't know.
Yeah. There was some other question.
Let the record be that there was some confusion on the.
No, before we start to fight, let's give the audience.
Hi, I'm Shada Laron from Kuwait. I come from the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research and from the National Center for Science and Technology. It's part of the institute. Actually, I'm the project leader for the Kuwait Digital Repository for Science and Technology, and one of the problems we are facing is how to preserve the scientific data that as an output from our research activities. My question is, well, most of the questions been answered, but as part of that work there in Kuwait, I would go back and, of course, I would explain the idea. And I know the management will be very much interested to participate in I don't know, one of the activities there. But what kind of also materials I can use to present the idea or the concept, not only for Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, the plan is to involve other researchers from Kuwait University or the petroleum company where they have some researchers there also. We are a very small country, but I'm also looking of presenting the concept for other countries in the region, the Gulf, with the conferences we have, like in the region, or maybe we have some work with the Bibliotheca Alexandria, and I know they have a very strong ICT team, and they are much involved in these kind of initiatives. I mean, I think they will be glad to participate somehow in one of the working groups, or maybe develop a working group which is especially for the area there. Especially we are dealing with two languages, English and Arabic, and in the digitization area we have problems in retrieving the Arabic, and they have solutions for that. But the thing is, if I'm going to present the concept, and I need some materials, or maybe I'll do a workshop or roundtables for the researchers to participate, who should I contact? I mean, okay, there's another point, so if you don't mind. You suggested some kind of the organization to participate. I know that some organizations, KISSER is a member of like the APA, and we do pay annual fee, and that's for maybe a consultation visit a year, or we attend the conference to discuss some of the issues we are involved in. So maybe one of the approaches will be that letting the organization to pay an annual fee, and this will be for consultation being done from the RDA, any consultant recommended in any area that we might need to help us in like the scientific data there in Kuwait or something. Well, this is just a suggestion. Another thing is for organizations like my organization, they love official work. I mean, if there's an official letter to be sent to the Director General and explaining the involvement of, I don't know if we are going to follow this mechanism or not, but I know this works in my country, and it has a weight in dealing with things. You know, it just will strongly my what do you call it? My position there, that I'm explaining something and there is something going on, and the official invitation coming from the RDA. I don't know if I explained myself very well.
No. If I give a start, and Frank or Juan can continue on the annual fees or the contact point in a way, that's and in a way I'm answering also to one of the previous questions about the dissemination of some of the, like the streaming from this conference. As the organization also is quite young, the dissemination activities around it has also been built for during the last month. So we are still in the stage of giving birth to all this. So there are certain things which we could have done better, absolutely, and I think we did quite a good job, but we could have done that better. The website, I'm slowly coming, my mind is perhaps a bit struggling. The website, of course, will be the key point for the contact in a way. I mean, the website is not answering anything, but that's a point where you should find all these kind of things like documents and the names and addresses to contact. And that's something which we will put major effort into now to upgrade the website. I mean, we have an organization now, so Now we can start contacting also other. This has been one of the difficulties because RDA wasn't existing before. It was difficult for the people to contact because the organization did not exist. Now it exists, and I know I have heard several of the RDA persons saying that now we can start the outreach in sending these official letters for contact. So I think this is something which will come. The documents which you were referring to, we are building up, so to say, the data repository for this, which includes now both the dissemination material as well as all the material in relation to building up the organization. This is very important for the transparency that all the documents which are used for building up RDA are publicly available. So I can only ask you to bear still a bit of time, and I promise, if you want the material, you can always contact the email address on the website exists, so you can always contact that, and somebody will contact you back. But give us a bit more time, and I think we are a lot better organized through the website, which is not really currently up to the standard, I think, which we would like to have it. But that takes some time.
I'll just add one point on that before passing over to Fran for the other question. There is the press release that came out a few days ago, which I think is on the website now.
It
so
is.
If you just want a short document now, 2 pages,
yeah.
Under the documents on the website, there is a thing that was a press
Absolutely.
release.
Yeah,
that's a short summary of about the launch meeting and what the RDA is. So if you need something now, that's probably the best place to start.
Only a few documents, but if you need more, that's good. Thanks, Juan.
And just adding to these guys, I think they've really covered it. It may be possible that there is an RDA member who can come help you. Maybe there's someone in the area or someone who's going to be in the area, and you could just. I know John Wood was telling me he was going down to South Africa. Maybe he wants to stop or something. Anyway, there may be someone who can help you, and then I just wanted to sort of specify for you to take back as a message that there are a number of ways to engage in the RDA. And so the easiest thing, which we all should be doing, is just join by, going onto the website and joining the forum. So that's open to the entire community. It's free. You're there. You're part of the RDA community. You can participate in any of the discussions or evaluations or et cetera. Another way to participate is to actually, work with people to decide to submit a case statement for a working group or start an interest group. Again, that's something the community can do. As I was saying to Kathleen earlier, for organizations, they may be interested in some sort of affiliation. If we can find a really good, fruitful intersection, that would be terrific. There may be other organizations who are interested in being on the organizational board. If that's the case, they should contact Ross and I, because we're trying to think that through. And last but not least, there's sort of a country level. And to do that, to be sort of at a country level where you're really sort of, in some sense, focused on building the organization through your advocacy and through your help, and through your own researchers in your own country who are sort of interested in these kinds of activities. I would contact the folks who just call themselves the RDAC. The representatives here are Carlos, Kostas, Alan, Chris, and Claire is not here. So I would say the four of them. Yeah, and Chris was sitting here, and he went off to greener pastures. But so I would contact them, and they are trying to formulate their own processes and procedures around admitting new countries, which they are very interested in doing. So that would be a fruitful conversation with them.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, I had a little question in terms of the adding international partners for the sake of expanding the stakeholder group of RDA. Now, there's 2 ways of doing that. The informal way, like we would just, you send us an email and we say, would IOD, IOC be willing to collaborate? Mm-hmm. That's the easy way, the informal way. Yeah, and we start doing this. And then you can start immediately. Another way is the more formal, with a memorandum of agreement and whatnot. But then the question is, what is RDA? What is its legal status? Because it says an organization. What kind of organization? And that, to create this MOA or MOU, it may take 6 months, if not longer. Now, meanwhile, you have working groups who will meet this evening and will probably come up with some sort of a work plan. Now, if that is the case, then the working groups are already starting, and by the time you have created a formal agreement with the organizations, the train will have left the station. So my suggestion would be start informally, send out these emails to willing partners and give them a name of some sort, put it on your website, RDA is collaborating with, and we can work. Yeah. But my question is also, what is the legal status of RDA?
Yeah, it's funny, we were just talking about this like 2 hours ago, so we're in mind meld about this. RDA is a professional organization, so it's a professional organization for the data community. Anyone can join. You don't have to be one of the member countries that decide it's supporting it. You can join from anywhere in the world. Your country does not have to be one of the RDAC. So let me be really clear about that. Anybody in the data community can join. In terms of legal status, one thing we were discussing is if you have a secretariat and you have events, you have to be able to handle money, for example. And so in the background, like lots of other organizations, IETF and CODATA and other things, we're trying to figure out how do we establish that kind of framework that backs up this, broad community activity. That's something that will be, kind of transparent. If you work at a university, I work at a university, that university exists as a legal entity. I spend no time reading, maybe I should, but I spend no time reading the legal establishment of that. But it enables the university to act as an organization that can, process money and hire and fire and stuff like that. RDA will be a professional organization, like for those of you in the computer science community, the ACM or the IEEE, will have something that is behind the scenes that helps us do the things we expect to do, but everything will happen kind of at the community level.
Okay.
But then I would suggest maybe as the organization is something that's developing, I think the relationships with other partners is also something that can develop.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we didn't deliberately, as you said, wait for that in any sense, because as you said, that will take time to set up the organisation, to set up formal MOUs, all takes time, and we don't want to wait for that. So we'll just get on with it and then let that happen in due course when we have the time to address it.
I was not attending the meeting, so I can well say my opinion. But I think you should think about it now on the timeline that this is the first RDA plenum meeting. This is T0. The next one will be in 6 months in the United States. And my sort of internal plan in a way is that by the next RDA meeting in September, we need to have a picture about the legal structure.
Yeah.
So if that gives you, in a way, the sort of a timeline we are operating in, I think that's realistic. I don't know, I wasn't attending, but...
Yeah, but that's exactly other people. And in fact, John, who has experience with these things, will take the lead in that, so it'll be really useful. Not Juan, but John. Although you have experience too.
Yeah.
No, it's on. It's on. It's on. You just have to have it a bit closer.
Okay, a few questions about the MOU, the incorporation, and the legal status, just for my understanding. Do you imagine the founding agencies, NSF and DC and so on, to be part of the entities who sign those agreements, or do you just imagine the participating organizations?
They cannot sign these agreements because that makes us a government group and we are a community group, so they cannot sign the agreements.
Good. So this I suspected.
Yeah.
How long do you think RDA is going to be needed? For how long do we need an RDA? 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 5 years?
That's a great question. If we're effective, we should keep going as long as we're an effective, impactful organization. And You know, I'm not sure that, you know, the idea is to sort of make it better and better as we go on. If we're not making it better, then perhaps there's not a use for it, but I can't imagine that all these problems are going to be solved, at least in my lifetime. I don't know. Maybe you have more hope than I do.
So one of the things we said is we've got a mission at the moment, which is in the strapline and all that, and we have a council that is going to make sure the organisation aligns with that. By the time we solve that problem, might be a long time, the council will be the body that defines the new goal, if there is one, or just says, no, we've done the job now and we should fold. But we have a mechanism for maintaining that mission, and I think it will evolve with time, of course. Not very often, but occasionally we'll say, actually, you know, we need to refocus a little bit. This is now the problem. So it could last a long time, but it's not going to be doing exactly the same thing for a long time because organizations evolve.
So you need to incorporate something which gets a commitment in writing for a long term from universities or research labs or research groups for moving some money around for a minimal amount of staff. And how minimal is the amount of staff?
I'm not sure what the
I
question
don't understand
is.
the question either.
How much staff do you need? Because we're saying we need to incorporate because we need money. We need money because we have to pay a secretariat. We need to pay a secretariat because we need to have this thing running and we need it running for a long time. And how many people does this include? 3 people, 10 people, 50 people?
That's a really good question. What we're trying to figure out now, this is part of what we'll be doing over the next few months, is, you know, because a secretariat or any administrative organization is a functional organization that helps you do the things that you promised that you would be doing. And so the question is, what are those things? And which kinds of individuals do we need to do that? So for example, we talked about outreach and communication earlier. It would be very advantageous for the RDA community to have communication professionals as part of the organization. They talk about the wonderful things, hopefully, that all of the working groups and the community and the discussions are doing. It's very important to your and my, you know, and our stakeholders to know about them in language they can understand. Good communication professionals can do that. So for example, you could imagine that in the future, a secretariat at Steady State might have a communications professional on staff to assist with that. There may be a number of other things. So what we're trying to do is budget out what kinds of functionalities we need as an administrative structure, how many individuals that will require, how much does an event like this cost? You know, if we want to have 2 breaks and coffee and some cookies, you know, typically that's set at a certain level. It's not $2, it's not $200,000, somewhere in between. Once we kind of create a real budget, then we have a sense about what steady state is. If we want to become self-sustaining, that money has to come from somewhere. So that helps inform at what level we set. It's probably too much detail, but this are the kinds of things we're thinking through. At what level we set organizational partnership levels, for example. Is there a, you know, a gold, a silver, a, you know, whatever? How many of those do we need? What is the role of the public sector in this? What is the role of the government agencies? So those are the kinds of budgeting processes we're trying to do, just to sort of figure out what this actually means. Every professional organization does this. You know, if you're members of, say, the IEEE, the ACM, this is exactly the kind of budgeting process they go through as well.
Do you, Fran, want to reflect about the number of persons involved now? Because
Yeah. Well, now we're kind of operating on pretty much on a shoestring. Right now we have 3 people in the secretariat. I got a grant in the U.S., and we were lucky enough to hire Mark Parsons. Leif got a grant in the EU, and we were lucky enough to hire Herman Stehauer. And Ross and Andrew from ANS were lucky enough to get Stephanie Keathers in. And they've been working very, very hard, and anything good that happened in the conference here is really a result of their work. The 8 of us on the organizing committee, 2 of us from the US, and 2 of us from Australia, and 4 of us from the EU, have also been working extremely hard to do this. Now, going forward, we will be organized, and there'll be a number of constituent groups, a technical advisory board, a organizational advisory board, a council, you know, secretariat, etc. So we hope that all of these responsibilities will, in some smooth way, transition to those groups of people. But as I said, you know, we're a day and a half old now. And so the work now has been done by those groups of people.
But it's already true that we need more people to take part in the organising of RDA. We need more people who are volunteering effort to take roles, to take on responsibilities. We're going to talk about this tomorrow in that last session about, you know, basically who is willing to contribute to become part of the organisers to help RDA become an organisation, because we can't do that on 8 part-timers and 3 full-timers, right? You need a larger number of people who are contributing voluntary effort to take on particular responsibilities to make RDA function.
Yeah. You need more, professional society should have more than 11 people in it, so.
And will you incorporate in the US? Will you incorporate in the EU? Will you incorporate at all? Because as soon as you need a legal personality, you need an incorporation, and then you need to start paying people who are in 3 different continents. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, as a disclaimer, I've incorporated like 5 of those things in the last 3 years, so I've painted a lot, including 501c3's papers. So
we could use some help, by the way. We're trying to figure out where we should incorporate in order to make sure that, for example, say you collect money at an event or nonprofit, obviously you don't want to like spend that on a boat or something. Maybe you want to spend it on a secretariat, a couple of secretariat members who live in different countries. So now you have to distribute it across international borders. So one of the things, now this is not rocket science in the sense that other organizations have done this. So one of the things we're going to be doing is looking at best practices. Where, you know, where should this be? You know, this organization be, and you know, where the tax structure is advantageous and it's straightforward to be able to pay people and, you know, buy donuts and, you know, do whatever kinds of things we need to be doing. So if you have experience with that, you know, let us know, because, you know, one thing that we're trying to do is kind of work through it. Don't do it in the U.S.
Don't do it 501c3.
I don't know if I should be like insulted or like, oh, say, yeah, you're right. I don't know. It's not my area of expertise.
It's just the heaviest possible place to do that.
Okay. I think we should go over to the,
David Coleman, Helmholtz Association, Germany. Yeah, I would like to go one step back. Maybe I missed something. I don't want to talk now about financing this organization, but rather, again, touch upon its mission or its the objectives of its existence. When I read what's on the webpage, what's in the press release, we talk about accelerating innovation through better accessibility to data. And then eventually we also talk about standard harmonization. So is the objective eventually to really somehow put through standards, protocols, translation between protocols, something that's binding for all research organizations, something like some protocols for the internet? Would that be eventually the mission, or are we more or less a club of people that talk about best practices? That's my first question. And second, it's sort of related to this. We talk about other organizations who are active in the marine research and so on. How do we see ourselves? Do we see ourselves as an umbrella to all these organizations, as a federation of these topical or professional organizations in individual fields? Thank you.
Should I take the first? The first part, are we going to make some binding standards? No. Are we going to make some standards that will be adopted by everybody? I hope so. Right now, there is no binding standard in the sense that if I want to go and invent a PC which has a network protocol that's completely different from everyone else's, I can do that. It just won't talk to anybody else's. So I'm not going to do it because there's no need. So we need to get to a stage where we have the same things with data exchange, where I will want to make my data available in the de facto standards and protocols that have been defined through RDA or through any other body, because those are the ones that are going to make my data available. But binding standards where you have a big stamp and you go through process where all sorts of countries ratify something, etc., etc. No, I don't think that's the type of thing we're trying to do.
Can I continue a bit, because this is very important, and I think it hasn't really been emphasized enough, and that's the RDA in a way is a platform. And it hasn't been emphasized, I think, enough that we are talking about multidisciplinary thing, really. We see that RDA can be the platform for promoting multidisciplinary data exchange. The idea is not really to go to the marine community and tell them that you should do it this, you have been doing it wrongly for the last 10, 15 years and you should do it this way. That's not the way RDA is planning to do, but we think that we can provide a platform where the different disciplines can come together and discuss about the best practices, and there is something which has been done or which have been implemented in some field that can be used in other fields as well, and create really a multidisciplinary exchange of data. And I think this is really the key thing, and it hasn't been perhaps echoed really strongly enough, and I think this will be one of the key things of RDA, but perhaps Fran wants to speak further on this.
I think that's beautifully said. The idea is not to sort of own any other organization or create a overarching, the idea is to partner with other organizations for the benefit of the community, because at the end of the day, it's all about the work we do. And we want to facilitate that.
Okay, then we will work as some sort of a translation engine among different fields, among different protocols. That's how I would, again, translate what you are saying now. We try to be a platform where the different groups can talk to each other, where the different data standards, formats can be exchanged, right? So in that way, it is some sort of a translation mechanism between different protocols.
Have we exhausted you all?
I think they can feel the coffee smell of the coffee soon.
By the way, thank you. We really appreciate the fact that that this level of interest, and this is for all of us, so we should figure out the best way for us to go forward, and we invite everyone to be a really substantive part of it.
Yeah, the statement that you just made, I think that should be in your banner, that it is a platform. Because the concern was maybe a little bit that you would start developing certain standards or technologies or whatever else that are somewhat disconnected from existing initiatives. But maybe that message has to be passed along also clearly to the working groups then, that meet at 6 or 5 or whatever it was, so that their terms of reference are clear. Again, as I said, if you want the other experts from out that currently are outside RDA to participate, they cannot get the feeling that they're jumping on a train that's already moving.
So what words would capture that? If we're going to put that into a few words, what are the kind of words we should use?
For the working groups, you mean?
No, for the banner. You say in the mission we need to capture this, that we're...
Well, that it is a platform.
It's a platform for...
Well, you said it better than I will say it.
What did I say?
Okay.
For interdisciplinary data exchange.
Right. Then where they can come together and discuss best practices so they can share these practices. That was part of it too?
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe you have to rewind or this is not live streamed?
It might be, I don't know. We got one question down there.
Yeah, probably just a remark, and because my experience says that it's, I think you mentioned this already in one way or another, it's a process, and it may take a long period of time. Awareness has to be raised, etc. But I think the big challenge will be to keep the different pace, the different speed of developments in some sort of order, because what we experience here, some working groups are very much ahead, they're very active, but I think that many others, not the working groups, but many others in the disciplines are left behind to some sort of, and I think this will be the challenge to bring all more or less together in a same level of awareness on data sharing, etc.
It's funny, when you say that, I think, it's like, I don't know how many of you are parents, but I have 2 kids, and it's like, they don't both need shoes at the same time. They're sort of just growing at different rates. And the important thing is that they're growing. And so, you know, I think not all of the interest groups and you know, working groups and stuff like that will be at the same place at the same time. But if we keep that pipeline going, I think, you know, I think that's very important.
It probably have also to keep keep the expectation in the right sort of shape. You know, we should not expect that we have a solution in 1 year's time for everything, every discipline, etc.
Well, to be candid, that's one of the most surprising things to me is how viral, you know, discussion of the RDA has become and how high the expectations are. You know, that we will not only boil the ocean, but we'll serve it up in cups of tea, you know, during the break. And the fact is, we want to start with something that perhaps is extremely hard, but is fairly straightforward, which is let's just get more pieces of infrastructure out there that's really helpful for data sharing and exchange. And the rest of it needs to evolve to make sure that that's, you know, remains a really useful mission, but it will take some time.
I would like to come back to what I was telling or saying already earlier, and that RDA has its value also in Europe and US, and I think already RDA has created a lot of goodwill for the exchange of data in Europe, and I would almost imagine that in the States has happened pretty much the same, that RDA has activated NSF and other organizations, and at least in Europe, now RDA, I mean, we would not have got Nelly Cruz here if the Commission would not have also been activated in. So I think RDA has its influence also on the local level, and I think you were referring to Kuwait in a way that you can see RDA as an engine to push things forward also there. So I think we should really understand this as an activity which has very many threads on different levels, and I think we should all expand further on this. Even though I know this is recorded, I dare to say that Europe is necessarily not very well organized in the data field. But if we can create something which pushes the research data and the interoperability and usage of research data forward, I think we are doing a lot of good for the Europe already.
I agree, and I think that Andrew and Ross would beat us up if we did not include Australia in that.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Sorry, I forgot. They are fighting crocodiles somewhere now.
Talking about Europe, is there also a demand from within the Commission to try and improve research data sharing amongst the EU silos?
So I think this is one of the things that the funders, both NSF, the EC and the Australians, are all very, very keen that this happens, because just all sorts of different organizations in the last few years have put out policies about open data, about data sharing, about marriage. And policies on their own don't change the world, right? Policies have to be implemented, and they have to be implemented by the people who are doing things for real. So I think the funders see the RDA as a way that those people who are really doing things, getting together and working out how they can actually comply with the policies that have been set by the funding bodies who are funding their research. So I think that's the motivation. There's a top-down push on the policy, but the community has to respond to that and work out how they're going to implement those policies. And RDA is the forum to have those discussions and work out.
Sorry,
I was just checking to see if I was keeping you guys, we were keeping you guys from copies. So.
Date and place of the next one, you mentioned September, but maybe I missed.
Tomorrow it's going to be announced formally, so we shouldn't say too much.
Tomorrow is the unveiling of the Plenary 2 announcements. So.
It's in roughly 6 months, and in a different continent.
Yeah. we have slides and everything. Don't make us tell you that.
I apologize for stepping in. But I'm so excited about this. It's impossible to keep me.
He's excited that he doesn't have to oversee another plenary. Is what he's excited.
No.
Any other questions? Thank you guys for coming. And
thank you.
Okay, now you're RDA advocates, so you have to go forth and
we rely on you now.
And advocate.
Yeah. Thank you.